right, clear for takeoff. Line of checks call complete. Everything looks good. Here we go, crew.
We get the page. We carry our pagers with us at all times.
A 4 a.m. wake-up call in Afghanistan.
And a saturation on this.
It's stuff you can't unsee.
These three are on a mission
Black Spider 5-1 Bagram Tower. Disregard. Disregard.
to take the most gravely wounded soldiers out of war.
They have a family somewhere out there that's worried about them.
Over the gate.
It'll help their recovery.
Power set.
It'll motivate them to stay strong.
Files controls. Door controls.
It could be an American, one of the 20,000 who've been hurt fighting in our longest war.
I'll remember those names forever. You know, I'll remember looking into their eyes forever.
We know the patient this time has a bad infection from a gunshot wound. If the infection gets worse, he could die.
Bagram Tower, Whirler 2-2.
But what we don't know is if he's too bad to move, and if he'll be able to breathe 25,000 feet in the air.
If that's the case, then we won't be able to fly with him at all.
Check, Spike Spider 5-1.
You don't know if he's stable, you don't know if he's unstable, things can go south real fast.
This isn't just a story about the wounded.
Airborne, climbing away. Gear up. Gear's coming up.
It's a story about the elite medical team who helps them take their first, most critical step back home.
Contact departure. Have a good flight. Bagram. Push 3000 or departure. After Gulf. Go ahead and hit the packs real fast. Torque 62, 3000, contact departure.
That mission in Afghanistan all started on U.S. soil here, where the closest military base is more than an hour away. A city known for its chili and Major League Baseball's oldest professional team.
The Reds have won it 4-3 in the bottom.
Not its military know-how.
Middle Earth, the place everybody else flies over.
Inside University of Cincinnati Medical Center, this level 1 trauma center, where Cincinnati's wounded need the highest level of care, is transformed into a war zone.
Hold on, Johnny. Doc's here, okay?
It's the Center for Sustainment of Trauma and Readiness Skills, or more often called C-STARS, an entire floor of people training Air Force members to move soldiers fighting to survive more than 7,000 miles away.
It's just a 3-person team, and you could be flying, up to 6 pretty complex patients.
They're called CCATT teams.
We're going to be moving right here.
And they've moved more than 6,800 patients since 9/11. Sometimes the flights are more than 12 hours long. Soldiers are coming home just 48 hours after they were hurt.
You have no backup. When you're in the back of that aircraft, you're it. So any problem that comes up, you're the patient's only chance.
No pulse. Hey, he's got no pulse. I want you to start.
Every doctor, nurse, and respiratory therapist on board since 2003 has all started right here in this room.
I'm fresh out of training, so I've been in school for a long time.
This is the first time new physician Sabrina Akhtar met respiratory therapist Vinny Babauta. And what these strangers don't know now is they'll soon work side by side, saving the casualties of war.
The buck stops with you. Ultimately, when we're making a decision in flight and the nurse turns to me and says, do you want to do this? And I have to say yes or no, and there's no one else to look at behind me to say, is that the right answer?
Vinny's a first-timer in this course, too.
So we're kind of just going off of what they're telling us. Like when you deploy, you'll see this, you'll encounter that.
And the month before they met, their third teammate, Nurse Sarah Batzer, went through the same thing.
I wasn't sure I was going to pass. It was nerve-wracking. It really was.
She passed. Sabrina and Vinny did too. And the fake patients in Cincinnati were soon replaced by victims of real-life war.
There's just some stuff that, I'll never be able to get visuals out of my head.
I didn't know what the conditions were going to be like here in Bagram. I was thinking we were going to be in tents and using latrines outside.
7,047 miles from where their training started. The new team assembles at Bagram Airfield in Afghanistan. It's just about a 50-minute drive from Kabul in the country's Parwan province. Resources once available here in this nearly $558 billion war have dwindled, and almost 84,000 U.S. troops are now gone. But at a time when the U.S. is winding down its military presence here, the country's largest U.S. base still bustles with action.
A lot of people back home don't realize that people are still getting injured. It doesn't make the news anymore. A lot of people don't think we're at war anymore.
But in their first months here, Sarah, Sabrina, and Vinny saw the dreadful part of the conflict for themselves.
We're not out there fighting. We don't get to experience the, bullets flying over our head. But like it is happening. We're in the middle of war.
Sabrina will always remember her first mission in April. An American soldier, brain dead, with family waiting for him at home.
Because it was my first mission, I was so focused on the logistics of things. It wasn't until later on when I reflected after the mission had been complete that I thought about, wow, this he's not coming back.
Or it's this story Nurse Sarah will never forget.
I had a guy, he was I remember he had the brightest blue eyes, and I think he was probably about 25 years old, and he was just staring at the ceiling crying, and I could tell he was just terrified. He had gotten shot, and I made sure, I was like, hey, I'm flying with you. I was here when you got here, and I'm going to fly you to the next place, and I will be here with you every step of the way. He's like, thank you, ma'am, don't leave me.
But when we arrive in September, things for this team have slowed down.
You, sir, are not working on the correct muscle.
I'm not desperate for work. A good day is when I don't have a mission, right? A good day in Afghanistan is when somebody didn't get hurt and I don't have a mission.
We jokingly call it Groundhog Day because each day just kind of runs into the next. Every day ends up being the same.
For now, these roommates bond in this tiny room for two.
This is my living room, so this is where I lie to lounge and just watch TV. But when it's sleep time, I lie at this end of the bed, so this is the bedroom.
There's a formal transition.
In this strange world, fun and games turns to life and death with just the sound of an alarm. That loud siren means there's been enemy fire.
Mine's not going off.
Yes, that was you that you just shut yours off. Does it say 011A?
All clear. Emergency terminated.
But it turns out this time, the page is only a false alarm.
If I was constantly thinking about we could be getting a mission, and thinking about the next patient that's coming through the door, it would be exhausting, and I don't think I'd be able to sustain that for the 6 months that we're out here.
So now, it's back to the daily grind.
It comes in waves, we won't do anything for weeks at a time, and the week before last we had 2 missions in 1 week. When we first got here, we had 3 missions, I think, our first week.
And just when life here starts to feel normal, at 4 a.m. on September 12th, they're called in.
Where is everybody?
Paged for mission, the 18th one for this team since they arrived.
We have to go do an intel brief with base intel.
This piece of paper gives Sabrina a snapshot of what's in store. A bullet ripped through a man's vital organs, and then something went wrong with the repair.
Started leaking stool into his abdomen.
Now he's got a blood infection so bad he could die.
I'm not sure how depleted Herat has been. They just don't have the capabilities. They have, I think, 1 or 2 ICU nurses there, which can be a lot of strain on them.
They're headed to an Italian base in western Afghanistan near the Iran border. On most days, a 15-hour drive by car. It'll take this team an hour each way to reach him and bring him back to the largest U.S. hospital here by plane. But that's if he can fly at all. We know he can't breathe on his own, and the medical equipment he needs might not work at 25,000 feet in the air.
So that's kind of the trickiest part with this patient, is going to be making sure that his brain and the rest of his organs are getting enough oxygen when we're at altitude. We kind of just have to go and see what he looks like.
It is an honor. It really is. That kind of supersedes any fatigue I may feel or any discomfort I may feel, because our equipment isn't light to carry. It's a lot of very heavy equipment, and being on your feet for many, many hours and being awake for many, many hours. I'm still not out there living, in the dust and wearing full battle rattle every day.
Now, 3 hours later,
Airborne, climbing away.
it's go time. An hour passes, they land, and a medic picks these 3 up from the plane.
Want to lose you, the physician. Hi, nice to meet you.
Vinny and Sarah set up their equipment, while Dr. Sabrina sees the man on paper for the first time. Turns out he's not an American. He's an Afghan man. Now Americans trained to help Americans are actually helping Afghan soldiers. They're the most recent victims of America's dying war. The Afghan government says more than 13,000 of their Army soldiers and police officers are now dead, and more than 16,000 have been wounded fighting. This is the 6th Afghan Sabrina, Sarah, and Vinny have tried to save. And while they're focused on hooking up their patient to new and complex machines, this young man's been watching the whole time. Turns out he's watching this team try to save his father, Afghan Border Police Battalion Commander, Major Sardar Mohammed. He was protecting the Afghanistan border when the Taliban attacked him from 4 sides.
He's still sick.
Yeah, he's still infected.
Yeah, but I think
I think the medicine is fight against the infection.
I'm really sorry.
Now this commander's 13 children cling to the hope that he survives.
They're all upset and they're crying. Everybody is praying. My little sister, she's about 3 years old. She's the last one. Even she's, praying a lot.
For this family, the war has taken its toll. They lost 3 uncles and a grandfather to war. And their father has now been injured on the job 10 times. 5 of those injuries were serious, but none quite like this.
If someone gets shot or someone get blast by IED, I might be this scared and this, that's it. I'm gone. I'm done. But this is not the first time. This is the 6th time that he's not leave his job. He didn't resign. He's trying to, get his revenge.
But at this moment, Vinny, Sarah, and Sabrina don't know a thing about Major Mohammed's story or probably even care.
If you got so emotionally attached to each and every patient, then I think it would be very, very difficult to do the job adequately.
Making sure we have enough pressure before I place him on the vent.
The question is still, can this man get enough oxygen to fly? After those weeks of intense training, this is a moment that matters. They decide to move him. Now they're preparing Major Mohammed for flight.
You can't hear anything on an aircraft because the noise level is just too high. So you can't even listen to a patient's heart and lungs and hear them through your stethoscope.
Sabrina says his blood infection is being treated, but he's still heavily drugged and not able to breathe on his own.
Basically, his only other issue at this point is his kidneys, which are still in failure.
That paper she looked at this morning, much worse than the situation right now.
When I first picked him up, I was very worried. I'm not worried about him. As far as the flight is concerned, no.
The mission is complete, but Major Mohammed still has a long way to go.
Then they'll take him to the ICU and decide if they need to go to the OR immediately or if they want to wait a little while and see how he does.
The next day, Sarah and Sabrina visit him. Major Mohammed is starting to breathe on his own, but this is the last time they'll ever see their patient.
It's kind of a bittersweet thing. It'd be nice to know that these patients are doing well and to reach out and see that they're doing well, but in the same respect, in my mind, I just want to leave it where it was.
They rarely keep in touch, not even with the 11 American soldiers these 3 have already saved.
I don't see myself as the hero by any means. Those guys are the heroes. A lot of them want to be, put back together and send me back out with my guys. They don't want to leave their unit. That's why it's my honor to get them home.
We stayed in contact with Major Mohammed's family, and less than a month after that mission, he walked. And as U.S. soldiers are preparing to go back home, Major Mohammed told us he's prepared to go back out.
استاده و از وطن خود از خاک خود از ناموس خود در برابر دهشتگران داخلی و خارجی دفاع می‌نمایم.
He'll be fighting for Afghanistan long after our war ends.